Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. I'm Rishabh Gulati, ladies and gentlemen. As of course, we are watching India's Prime Minister, who has now arrived in the Chinese city of Tianjin, just a couple of hours from Beijing for this SCO summit. Let us also not forget that he's just concluded. He's arrived in China after a really important visit to Japan. It has been significantly interesting what has taken place. So let's tabulate this very interesting global scenario that we are seeing play out, both bilaterally, multilaterally and across the globe, because the Japanese have come to some sort of deal with the Trump administration on tariffs. But if you ask them what it is, I don't think either side completely agrees. Satoru Nagao, he's joining us. He's a fellow of the Hudson Institute based out of Tokyo. Asta Chadda is joining us. She's an associate professor as well based out of Tokyo. Anil Raj, who is the founder and CEO of Raj Group, is also in Tokyo, and Sonal Shikha, who is also joining us from Tokyo. She's the president of an Indian Community Forum. Mr. Nagao, let me come to you first. Prime Minister Modi has had a couple of days in Tokyo. He's met with the Prime Minister. They've announced several agreements, including a commercial exchange mechanism, bullet trains, high technology, manufacturing, and a significant investment into Indian infrastructure. How has this visit gone?
This visit is very important, but Prime Minister Modi sends a message before he visits Japan, because the schedule itself has a message. Just before he visits China, he came to Japan. And just before the China's military parade, who celebrates the World War II exclamation mark victory against Japan, before that time, he will return to India. He will not join this parade. So this is a message. Even if the Prime Minister Modi joins the SCO summit in China, and China is arranging this, he visited Japan, it's sending message to Japan. He is a friend of Japan. That is firstly the very important, because without this visit, it looks like Prime Minister Modi will only visit China is not a good message to Japan. So that is we received, this is good message.
Okay.
And at the same time, most important part of the disagreement is Japan want to cooperate with India because India is growing very fast and expanding influence in the world stage. So GDP, military expenditure, everything is indicate that India is growing to be the leading country in the world. So that's why now the economic security or the technology and indeed not surface so much, but defense cooperation is also an important part of.
Okay, so let me just stop you there, because we'll have to pivot to the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is India-Japan association has been going great. Economic associations, strategic level conversations, interpersonal associations, you name it. We've had a wonderful association. For people watching this in India, things you're familiar with, the bullet train that is being built Ahmedabad to Mumbai, the India metro system, which has now emerged in every city, which started from the national capital. All of it is being done with Chinese low interest loans, Chinese investment, Chinese technology, Japanese investment, Japanese technology, and Japanese low interest loans. We've had a very, very good association with Japan. So the visit of India's Prime Minister, exactly as Mr. Nagao has pointed, he's gone to Japan and is not staying for the September 3 parade in Beijing, which is clearly telling us that the Indian-Japanese association remains unaffected by the dramatic global events. But Satoru Nagao, we have to address those dramatic global events. They are with us. What do we do with Donald Trump? He's come to some deal with the Japanese, but I don't know how long lasting that is. He, as of 3-4 days ago, has imposed 50% tariffs on India. He's hosting what we find very irritable is a Pakistani military leader in the White House. There is a global flux that is taking place. How do the rest of us get past it?
It is interesting part, of course, bad, but the interesting part because President Trump's negotiation style is a bilateral negotiation to deal by using the intimidation. So just before the Japan agree with the United States, not completely agree, but big picture has agreed. That time, President Trump making huge pressure against Japan. That was happening. So this means that if the United States, President Trump try to making the strong pressure to India, this means that this is just before something's agreement has happened. So that's why this last part is, of course, that time Japan is upset very much. But at the same time, after the deal has happened, everyone start to forget. So that's why rising the tension itself is happening in the many countries. But indeed, content of the disintimidation is not so important. We know that, and after the agreement, it will come. So that's why I do not worry too much about it. In case of the Ukraine, we can remember just before they agree something, President Trump said, Zelensky a dictator. And the next day he said, did I say that? I do not think so. Something like that. That has really happened. In case of Japan, just before it, Japan hasn't imported any rice from the United States, something like that. But when we check the agreement, rice matter is very small one. The big major one is not related with rice. So that's why he mentioned rice. That we confuse it. So that is in the really happening in
Okay, so you see this as just a rough patch. This is a negotiating tactic. But the negotiating tactic, if it goes on, then let's not kid ourselves. At the present moment, not just in officialdom, because we understand that trade negotiations are something that every country has to figure out with its trade partners. It's a conversation that the Americans have the right to get the best deal for themselves. That is Donald Trump's job. And our Prime Minister has the job to get the best deal for India. Somewhere in between, you come to an agreement. But the rhetoric sometimes becomes flooded to the public. And when we are being told that you're a dead economy and, it's Modi's war in Ukraine, with nothing to do with what's happening in Russia, Ukraine. And we will tell you who you can trade with and you can talk to and who you can't meet. Well, the British tried doing that, and that didn't end well for them. So that's something that we don't take well here. But let's get a different perspective here, because like I said, the arc of the Indian-Japanese association has been unaffected, but there is a multilateral association that does get affected. I don't know where the Quad goes from here in the next couple of months, because if the Quad was heading in one direction, well, BRICS and SCO seems to be heading in a different direction. There is going to be a PM Modi Xi Jinping meeting, which hasn't happened in 7 years. There's a good reason it hasn't happened in 7 years, and there's a good reason it's happening right now. I don't think that's a passing sentiment either. Asta Chadda is joining us. Asta Chadda, let's look at we'll have to look at the larger global affairs, because we can look at from an Indian perspective that 50% tariffs on us, but it's the tariffs on the Japanese. Even though there has been a trade agreement, there's still tariffs. There are tariffs on the Koreans, on the Europeans, on the Canadians, on the Mexicans, on everyone. Even the Pakistanis have 20% tariffs slapped on them. So what is going on? How long does this play out before things settle back to the routines that you and I are more familiar with?
Nice question. I mean, let me begin by saying that I don't think the tariffs are going away anytime soon unless President Trump and his administration sees that they need to buckle. As my previous panelist was mentioning, they are obviously a negotiating tactics. They are a tactic of intimidation, I would say, from Trump administration. But at the same time, I think they are not very welcome even inside America. Very recently, their Supreme Court moved this resolution saying that they are not sure if President Trump has the powers to exercise.
That's a federal appeals court. The matter goes to Supreme Court very shortly for people watching the broadcast. Carry on, Asta.
But that's the hope. Yeah, but that's the hope. That's where it's going to go. But anyway, talking about India and Japan, I think in case of Japan, they rushed to strike some sort of a deal that was again not an equal deal. But remember that Japan is an ally of the United States. Japan reiterates every single time that for their defense capabilities, US is inevitable. It's central, right? It's indispensable. India, however, does not have that as part of its foreign policy. India does not work with allies. We work with alignments, we work with like-minded partners, and on issue-based alignments. So those are two very different conceptualizations of how to do foreign policy. That's
Okay, but
one.
I have to ask you then this question that, okay, all of us are flummoxed, okay? The Japanese are flummoxed, the Europeans are flummoxed. I mean, the India-UK trade agreement, which has been being worked on, and suddenly the FTA happened, and that also with the Labour government. It happened very quickly because they're also flummoxed. We are all looking for alternatives because an economic hit is coming, okay? The economic hit will affect America as well. Things will become expensive, have already become more expensive over there. But yes, for exporters in my country, in Japan, in Europe, whose primary markets were North America, it's very confusing. People who are American clients are holding off orders not because they don't want the products, because they don't know what's going to happen next month, 2 weeks later. It might be 20%, it might be 50%. 20% and 50% are margins in companies. That's the difference between a profitable company and you're sunk. Okay, so things are being held. So we are now going to have to figure it out. But the question is, can the rest of us, Asta, get together and figure out enough of these bilateral trade movement that we can keep the global grease of the economy going?
Again, that question is quite loaded. Let me tell you, there is absolutely no economy that is going to go unaffected with what is happening. If there is going to be a crash, if we are looking forward to a lot more uncertainty, this is going to impact everyone. So there is no escape from it. That's number one. But since you said, what about other partnerships? I do see a lot of opportunity, which is why this India-Japan meeting was very well timed, which is why also Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping's meeting is very well timed, because everybody is calculating their own best interest. As far as trade is concerned, I don't see India feeling very cushioned this time because the United States is a major partner. At the same time, I think what the government is hoping to do is, one, establish alternative trade channels, alternative trade partners, so that we are at least in some way safeguarded in the long run. That's one. Two, what I think the Indian government is looking at right now is making sure that US gets the point that we are not going to buffet, at least not in the short run.
Okay, so the purpose of this visit of Prime Minister Modi to Japan has been twofold. Number one, that the Japanese, both in administration, they already know this, but the Japanese populace at large should be well aware that the issues that are taking place in global realignments that are being predicated by the rhetoric and even the policy coming out of Washington have no bearing on the Indian-Japanese association. We are going on business as usual. And the second was, can we improve our bilateral situation so that when the economic hit because of the tariff chaos does hit the world, and it is coming, okay, we can cushion it. The mathematics, ladies and gentlemen, is very simple. Let's say, for example, India has about $250 billion of bilateral trade with the United States. Let us say 10% or 20% of that is going to be affected by these tariff wars. That's about $50 billion. So we have to find alternatives for just $50 billion. The same applies to other countries. So if the Indian-Japanese association can go up by just $4 or $5 billion, and so can with us with 10 other countries, we can soften the blow. Internal stimulus measures in India, which is the largest indirect tax cut in the history of the Modi government, has already been announced. That's coming in force in a couple of months. So, but that's the geopolitical economic sphere. Let's get a different conversation going. Anil Raj is joining us. Anilji, how long have you been working out of Japan?
I've been here thanks for having me, and I've been here for 26 years. And I have seen pre and post Modi. I'm not post Modi, pre and the Modi era.
Okay.
So
I've
seen
what is for people watching the broadcast, because generally it's considered language issues, but India and Japan have a very large economic engagement, technological, manufacturing, trade engagement. So can you tell us a little bit, for example, what does your group, the Raj Group, do?
So we do multiple things. We are into hospitality, we are into IT, we are into technology space, we are into education, and we are into even language training. We are also tied up with several state governments to teach Japanese language. So our main purpose is to teach Japanese language and get them employed in Japan.
Okay, things between India and Japan have been looking great. I mean, it's the place where everybody I know has been visiting in the last couple of years. My parents themselves were there just a few months ago. All my friends have been traveling to Japan. Indians are discovering Japan. Visas have become very easy. So if you're a Japanese national, Japanese passport holder, you can get a visa on arrival in India, which is not common. If you are an Indian passport holder, the Japanese government is easily giving out 5-year visas. So everything possible is being done to ease this association. How is that impacting on things that you've seen change in the past 2 decades to where we are now?
Yeah, I think previously, I think visas was an issue, like especially tourist visas and all that stuff. But these days, I think visas are being very generous with the visas. So there's a lot of interest compared to what it used to be a decade back. There's a lot of interest with Japan, and there's a lot of what do you call, earlier there were not many vegetarian options. So because 50% of almost 40 to 50% of Indians are vegetarians, they used to find it difficult. So now there are plenty of vegetarian options. Plenty of people are looking at Japan because Europe has become expensive. Japan, because of the currency, it has become cheap. So I think comparatively, they feel people have gone to Europe, people have seen other places, people have seen Gulf. So Japan is something, I wouldn't call it exotic, but it's something close to that.
Okay. All right. Let me get Shikhaji into this conversation, Sonalji into this conversation. Sonalji, can you tell us a bit about yourself? How long have you been in Japan?
Thank you, Rishabh. I have been here more than 8 years. I will be saying 9th year. And yeah, 9 years I can
say.
So
what took you there? Was it work? Was it family? What took you to Japan?
I would say none of that. It was my health. So my health brought me here, and my health condition definitely got better here. And I have been working now also here professionally also, and as in my community also.
Okay, so the number one issue for Indians would be a language barrier, and you are from the generation, ma'am, that you would understand that for a lot of Indians, Japan was just one thing, Maruti Suzuki. Okay, beyond that, we didn't have a deep understanding. It was not on the tourist map per se. So what have you seen change in the past decade or two?
Okay, very very good question from a perspective of a very I would say Indian diaspora, from the heart of an Indian diaspora. I would answer that question. So personally, like I would try to give a personal touch also. Because I'm here because of my health, but my husband also got the opportunity to get a job here, which was the direct kind of appointment at the office here, the Japanese company here. So with the family here, and you are asking about everything, how's the perspective of living here in Japan and everything. Definitely, I would say living in Japan is very safe, very easy. I would say at heart, as a parent, as working and everything, it feels very safe. Regarding language barrier and everything, yes, it is difficult. Japanese language is one of the most difficult, but our Hindi, Devanagari, and Mandarin also comes in the same section of world's top 5 languages, which are very difficult to learn. But once we learn, we Indians survive and we kind of excel and we outstand ourselves. So a lot of Indian diaspora is working. Mostly 80% of the Indian diaspora here is working.
Okay.
Women, men, everybody. Okay. And in this visit, yeah.
Okay, that's excellent and happy news to hear. As I mentioned, there is a curiosity about Japan, and that's really helps, because the Indian-Japanese Association, if like I said, it's familiar to every Indian, should be familiar to every Indian, and will become very familiar, because the first bullet train is of course built on Japanese technology. I'll leave the last quick word with where I began with Satoru Nagao. Satoru Nagao, I have to ask you this question: can India and Japan trade enough with each other that we can offset any impact on trade with the US?
Yes, the trade level between two countries is not enough, unfortunately. But this means that the potential is big. And indeed, politically, the two countries collaborate very well. So this time we talk about African policy between two countries, because both of two countries focusing on India, Middle East, Europe, India, Middle East, Africa. So Indian Ocean region is developing fast, and strategically two countries collaborate diplomatically. So infrastructure project, creating the market, investing factory in India and export to this region. And Southeast Asia also the two countries collaborate. So that's why, indeed, this relation is strategic. So view from the business, yes, it's still a little bit the beginning point, but it will increase because two countries share the same national interest. That is the most important. And India is rising. India will be leading country in the world politics and economy both. So that's why Japan want to cooperate with India. And this is a message this visit has.
Okay, so how are the Japanese looking at it? Because the unfortunate story of the past decade has been that while Japan is already a developed country, has been for several decades, but it's economically stagnating, and India is overtaking Japan in terms of its economic size. How is this being digested where you are sitting?
Recently, Japanese start to understand that India is leading country in the world because the GDP is Japan is number 5 and India is number 4. It's bigger. So that's why. Then the militarily, of course, Japan is just beginning to ease our self-restriction. So that's why the military stage India shows very big. Exporting weapons, producing weapons, everything they can do now. So that's why India is rising. All of the Japanese start to understand. So that is Japan's perception. So compare with the 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, this is completely changed. India is leading country, great power in the global stage. That is Japan's perception now.
Okay, so let me end where I began by saying that the Indian-Japanese association has been going really well. Thumbs up. Okay. The reason Prime Minister Modi has been in Japan is so that not only the conversations happen, but a very public international message is sent that the Indian-Japanese association is not affected by the current difficulties with the United States of America, even though multilaterally on the Quad and others, there are still things that will have to be figured out. Hopefully soon, maybe never, who knows at this point of time. But more importantly, I don't know how much we can support each other in the little bit of economic jolt that is going to come, primarily because not that the tariffs are low or high, but because they are so chaotic. And that economic jolt is about to be felt by the world. Everyone will have to pay for it, including the Americans. Satoru Nagao, thank you very much for joining us. My thanks also to our guests Anil Raj, Sonal Shikha and Asta Chadha. We take a break. See you in a minute.